Hey, I don't know if you've been on YouTube.com recently, but everyone's been freaking out. The website's guessing your age, and it's got some sort of restricted mode where a bunch of content isn't showing up, and everyone's saying their views are down. And everyone's making videos about it, and people are making videos about those videos, and now I'm making a video about those videos, and it's all getting pretty heated, and the vibes are not good. But despite all the traction the topic of YouTube bad has received, it's still not super clear what the problem or problems are, and why creators are freaking out. And I think I can help there. Again, I know lots of people have talked about this, and even more will have done so by the time this gets out, but I think there's a proximate cause here and an ultimate one. That is, something which directly triggered this freakout, and something bigger which set the stage for that triggering. And so far in this round of platform discourse, I haven't seen anyone really connect the two in detail. That's what I'll try to do here. Let's start with the views drop thing. A few weeks ago, as I write this, some social media buzz started up from YouTube creators who'd noticed their recent views, so from August, were down. And view drops happen, obviously. They're not all gonna be bangers, but it is abnormal for views to drop for a whole bunch of different creators over the same period and to roughly the same degree. And when this sort of thing has happened before, it's generally been due to changes YouTube have made to the algorithm, the system that determines which videos get suggested and why, with the premier example of this being the way the shift to the current emphasis on view time dealt a huge blow to views on animation content back around 2012, which took far longer per second to produce than many competing forms. We ought to quickly note that views do tend to vary throughout the year too. Often your northern hemisphere views get a little lower over summer when it's nice outside. Apparently there's this thing called grass some people like to touch, and they'll dip again around September-ish as audiences go back to school and work. And some voices, most notably gaming YouTuber The Spiffing Brit, have pointed to this standard seasonal variation as the only real culprit here, and argued that anyone who thinks there's more to this is being silly.
So of course views are going to be down. You have less hours of the day dedicated to watching content. This trend is so common that each year, Rene over at YouTube releases the exact same tweet after creators panic that their viewer figures are down. So yes, I'm afraid that the thing most creators are panicking about is the exact same thing that other creators panicked about at this exact same time last year.
We'll talk in more depth about Spiff's video. I think people call him Spiff, right? Soon. It is the thing that drove me to start the piece you're watching now, but yeah, it's not this. The creators making the noise here, or at least the ones making the most noise, all tend to be pretty seasoned YouTube journeymen who have been in the game long enough to know what level of seasonal view variation is normal. And little secret from behind the curtain, the fact that this seasonal thing happens is one of the first nuggets of information you'll learn as you start a channel and enter creator spaces. No, views had seemed to drop across the site at a higher rate than in previous Augusts. A change to the mystical YouTube algorithm did seem to have happened, and the culprit looked obvious. Restricted mode. YouTube has this pared down mode that blocks a lot of supposedly dicey content called restricted mode, which tends to get used in places like schools and libraries, and concerned creators soon found out that a lot of their bombing videos were not visible in it. This wasn't a total stretch. Views had started to drop soon after YouTube had implemented a system for detecting younger users and altering their experience, in ways including some nebulously defined changes to what they'd get recommended, and right after this, YouTube had silently implemented another update, applying some sort of generative AI filter to a bunch of videos. Add to this a few isolated reports of viewers having this mode mistakenly turned on for them around the same time, and baby, you've got a theory going. A lot of people started thinking either that people YouTube had guessed were kids were getting shunted into restricted mode, or that some other stealth update around the same time had been applying a restricted mode-like filter to those young'uns' accounts. Including me. I thought this, sue me, seemed pretty plausible. This was before the views drop even, and it had me worried about views dropping, because that would have messed with the ad contract I just signed. If I can't tell the sponsor that a certain number of you guys heard me tell you about private internet access's virtual private network, depending on the contract, that might mean I have to do another one, or I don't get paid even. VPNs are handy though. They safeguard your internet connection and hide your IP through an encrypted tunnel. That's not a bit, by the way, I am doing an ad right now. Because this video is sort of about today's internet sucking, and it does suck a little bit less with a VPN, especially one like PIA's, which has servers to reroute your connection through all across the world and in all 50 US states, which doesn't keep any user data, that's been proven multiple times, and which you can use across all your devices with one membership. Watch stuff from other countries' streaming libraries simply by changing your geolocation in the app. Oh? What's that? Big Keith Starmer wants to see my passport and check my age? Psych! I'm in Bosnia now! Shout out Bosnians. Get on board today by following my link piavpn.com/pillarofgarbage for 83% off. Just $2.03 a month and 4 months free. So yeah, views are an important metric for us creators when we're negotiating or tracking performance for ads like that, and of course as a general barometer for if what we're doing is landing. And so people got rattled and started posting. Linus Tech Tips, or I guess LMG Clips, posted "Our views are down" at the start of September, and gaming channel Second Wind posted "YouTube is crushing our viewership" shortly afterward, with these two drops acting as the starting gun for everyone else to do the same and plug their Patreons in the narrow window of audience caring time. And there was only one problem. It wasn't restricted mode. YouTube doesn't put teens in it, and there is no evidence of it being randomly enabled at scale. So does that mean the spiffs of the world were right? Still no. Sorry, that sounded a bit snarky. To be clear, I've absolutely nothing against the spiffing Brit. I've enjoyed his videos in the past, and by all accounts, he seems like a nice fella. But he pinned a comment that said if you find his conclusion not exciting enough, please see Wikipedia link to Occam's razor. So I'm gonna be snarky right back. Anyway, at the risk of making this video even more British, which is something I don't wanna... the fuck? It's time to bring up Josh Strife Hayes. He's another gaming creator who's been covering this topic, and he noticed a peculiar trend in his analytics. Around the start of August, the number of viewers watching on desktop specifically dipped hard and stayed down.
Specifically around the August 9th to 12th period, because that is the date range the desktop views specifically fall out of correlation with the other device types and become consistently lower.
He contacted other creators who'd experienced the views drop, and across many cases, the desktop dip turned out to be mirrored. Hayes' hypothesis, and I'll link the full video below if you want the nitty-gritty, is that this views drop thing doesn't reflect fewer people watching, but instead a shift in the way YouTube counts views, very possibly relating to the site's ongoing struggle against ad blockers. Again, this remains a hypothesis, though since I recorded this video, one that does appear to have been soft confirmed by YouTube, and I will point out that my own stats don't line up particularly well with this trend. I can't see a notable drop in PC views around the pivotal August 10th to 12th point, but I'll also point out that as of mid-September, mobile views are leading PC views for me to a degree that is atypical. But it's also worth pointing out that my upload schedule's been so spotty in recent months that my own data probably isn't worth much to begin with. And I do think the data Josh Strife Hayes has gathered suffices to show that, at the very least, something is going on here, beyond standard seasonal drops, that even if it is just a question of how some views are being tracked, it isn't simply a mass Delulu event, and it does underscore the fact that the mechanisms and metrics creators take for granted can and do shift beneath our feet in potentially weighty ways. And we're not necessarily all on that same page. The Spiffing Brits video is currently titled "What is Happening to YouTube?" but when I watched it, it was called "Why Everyone is Wrong About the YouTube Algorithm." And that is the title which best captures the video's tone. Again, Spiff's argument is that this whole thing is a nothing burger, and that any view drops beyond seasonal variation are due to creators posting mid. You see, the real YouTube algorithm is the friends we made along the way. No, seriously.
It might seem hard to take in if you're a creator or just an audience member, but ultimately the reason videos get views is because people watch them. Videos don't get views if people don't watch them. It really is as simple as that. The weird nebulous YouTube algorithm doesn't decide who gets a view, you do.
Look, I'm not going to argue against viewer choice being an important part of what gets seen on YouTube. I mean, that's why you're here, right? Watching this? No one is holding a gun to your head, forcing you to watch my channel. Or at least I hope that's not the case. Well, it's part of why you're here, because You didn't just web search pillar of garbage YouTube bad to get here, did you? True, I do have some amount of regular viewers who would have seen I uploaded and clicked no matter what, and I think those guys rock, thanks by the way. But I know those guys don't account for most of my views, I can see that. A fair amount of my views come from the next level of dedication down. The guys who regularly see my stuff pop up on the homepage or on the side of another video, and either bang a new one in their watch later or click it then and there if it really grabs them. I am this viewer for a bunch of creators, for most of the ones I watch. All the rest of my views come from viewers even further down this slope of coincidence, from people who think I'm just okay and have to really be sold by the right title and thumbnail, or total strangers to my channel who see it for the first time one day and roll the dice. And yes, choice is still involved here, but the weighting of choice versus other factors kind of goes down, right? Okay, one of the best video essays I've watched this year is called We've Forgotten How to Forget. It's by Josh with parentheses, and it's about online fandom culture, imperfection, cartography, and like 5 other things, and somehow that's all wrapped around a Goofy movie. The movie about Goofy from 1995. The video fucking slaps. And you didn't watch it, did you? Another one of my favorites in recent months is even more to the taste of this channel's regular audience. Chariot's sprawling 3-hour opus is titled The Truth About Anti-Woke Grifters, but it's so much more than a culture war piece. It's about AI and games journalism and the everything we're living through right now, and it's so deeply thought through and genuine, and it's a video that would have 20 times as many views if I'd published it on my channel. Why didn't you guys watch those? They're great pieces. Tens of thousands of you watching this would love them, I'm sure of it. Views-wise, they both did pretty good in the context of their creators' channels because their audience did choose to watch them. And it's not that you didn't, it's that you couldn't. Because you can't make a choice if you don't know that choice exists. The point, or at least the point at this stage, isn't that YouTube is a bad platform because it has a system that recommends some content more than other content. No, it is simply that it is a platform, that we are not spherical viewers in a vacuum, that things like how much individual viewers might respond to a certain upload, or how much time they have at this point in their year or in their life to check those uploads out, these things are filtered through an algorithm, and that more choices are made on your behalf by that algorithm before you get to make yours. That us creators can work as hard as we like, but that doesn't stop some guy at Google HQ from pulling a lever, not telling any of us about it, and changing the way all of these choices play out. Or, don't play out. And that can be a scary prospect. One thing that's been lost a little in the backlash to the restricted mode bad position is the fact that restricted mode is bad. Not on paper, what it's supposed to do is screen out adult content, which, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be getting free reign of in a school or library, but that adult content definition includes discussion of political conflicts and some squirrely, non-specific coverage of sexuality and sexual identity-based stuff. And YouTube's bias being what it is, that means huge swathes of pretty appropriate stuff coming from a left or queer perspective is getting filtered out. Whole channels disappear. I got the white guy censorship debuff, I guess, so at least a handful of my recent videos make it through, but, compare my channel to someone like Matt Walsh's, right? Video essay on reality TV gets restricted and white nationalism doesn't. So sure, it wasn't restricted mode, but I kind of don't care that only 1.5-ish% of viewers are on restricted mode. That's still too many for something this fucking skewed. In theory, restricted mode is a non-issue, but in practice, as with so many of the more recent internet content restrictions that have come into place, theory is not meeting the uneven ground of reality of platform in an even way. I think that is worth our noting. And to be honest, with a views drop that went beyond typical seasonal variations coming alongside an automatic age gating update, and some users claiming to have had restricted mode wrongly activated around the same time, I think this was a pretty fair conclusion to jump to. In retrospect, maybe not the right one, and that lack of certainty was one of the reasons I didn't make any second wind style statements on main. But I think the fact that this is where we all went does tell us something about the sort of thing we've been conditioned to expect. Because you have to understand the degree to which we creators are fumbling around in the dark when it comes to the YouTube backend stuff. It's like we're working for a boss who constantly changes his mind without telling us, and also that boss is just like a rock. It's not even a question of vague guidelines and information not given. Some of the stuff we have to deal with is just arbitrary. Last year, the bonus video I did on the movie Uglies got copyright blocked. As always, I'd uploaded 2 copies, one for Patreon, one for YouTube members, so I had to file 2 separate copyright disputes, which I did hours apart with identical rationale for both. One got approved and the other got denied. Or a couple of weeks ago, I logged into YouTube Studio specifically to opt out of this new AI dubbing thing, that's a whole other story, and then yesterday I open it up and see this across the top. Gee, thanks YouTube, what a great platform. Seriously, the whole video could be examples like this. And like, the prevailing wisdom now is that the people YouTube pegs as teens only don't see videos that are flagged as age restricted, but we have also been told it alters recommendations around certain problematic types of content, types illustrated by this graphic. Again, I'm down for this in theory, there's a lot of evil, harmful slop targeted at kids online, but are any of my videos arguing against bullshit right-wing talking points getting classified as social aggression? I don't know. Do I get notified about that? Beats me. Presumably, the selection of what falls into these and what doesn't is being accomplished with machine learning tools, but in case you haven't looked at the news in the past 5 years, AI models absolutely can and do exhibit astonishing levels of bias based on how they're trained, so it wouldn't surprise me one lick if some of the problems of bias we talked about with restricted mode are operating here as well. In retrospect then, those conclusion-jumping YouTubers probably should have realized it wasn't restricted mode simply because of how straightforward that explanation was, and we ought to have known better. Nothing here makes sense. Anyway, Spiff's video takes that "you are the algorithm" train to arrive at the conclusion that we don't really need to worry about view drops because at the end of the day, creators should really be aiming to create fulfilling, enjoyable videos.
YouTube is about creating and having fun, and provided you're doing that, you're doing the right thing. The wrong thing is when you're creating and you're not enjoying what you're doing. This last month has been one of the lowest in terms of views for my channel in many years. I genuinely don't care. I'm here for the love of the game.
View drops are nothing more than a skill issue, and if you're concerned about them, you simply have the wrong priorities. And I really didn't want to do this, but that's kind of easy for him to say, right? Okay, in fairness to Spiff, this argument isn't quite the slightly out-of-touch sentiment it might appear at first. Remember, he is coming at it thinking there was no views or views tracking dip, that all this furor is a non-issue caused by analytics-poisoned mega-channels obsessing over routine underperformances. If something hadn't changed in the numbers, if he were right there, this is a fine point to make. And to be honest, even if there had been some severe algorithmic shift, it remains solid advice to the Linuses and Second Winds and Red Letter Medias of the world. You know, hey guys, even if there were a change, you've got enough parachute to weather it or to adjust if necessary, so chill out. You're good. But the problem here, and really the main problem with Spiff's video, is that it wasn't something isolated to those mega channels. You may well have assumed otherwise if you just went off complaints you happen to see on social media, but even if everyone's saying similar things, you're only going to see the big dogs' complaints because they're the big dogs. They're the ones with the followers and the reach and the retweets. They're the ones you're following. This is a relatively big factor to miss. Catching it was what put Josh Strife Hayes on the path to the ad-blocked views hypothesis. Not catching it is a mistake sufficient to derail Spiff's argument, because the vast majority of pro or semi-pro creators who rely on YouTube for part or all of their income are well below this level and don't necessarily have that leeway. For people like that is for people like me, an actual 30% site or niche-wide drop in views, even for a few months, could have been the difference between continuing to operate and not. To his continuing credit, this is another thing Hayes catches.
Especially for smaller creators who are trying to go full-time, or mid-sized creators who need to be able to count on reliable patterns to budget, can be a really scary thing. And 1 or 2 bad months can be the end of smaller to mid-sized channels if they need to take on other paying jobs, which makes their video output go down.
And I think this is a point worth sketching in a little more depth, because creators struggling to keep view numbers up isn't really a skill issue. It is kind of inevitable. There are not enough viewers for every creator to do this well, and the nature of the platform is such that being below that top level is hard. For one, you're effectively competing against people with more resources, with whole teams often, because success has a snowball effect. It's like in the real world. In theory, everyone has the same opportunity to hit it big, but could I really start a business today and compete with Amazon? Or does all that built-up exploitation, sorry, success, built up success, mean they have the resources to totally outcompete me. Like King Neptune if all the Krabby Patties actually tasted the same. A few decades of that, capital starts pooling higher and higher up, income inequality grows, labor power shrinks, and bada bing, bada boom, everyone's writing articles about the mysterious disappearance of the middle class. It's fine. It's gonna trickle down any day now. So yeah, that is a very extreme comparison, but it's not a totally different story on places like YouTube, especially these days. Quality creep means that if you're trying to start or scale up a channel from scratch in an existing niche without your production quality being noticeably detrimentally worse, you have to work harder or spend more money than you might have done 10, even 5 years earlier. And in earlier days, mentioning something like Ko-Fi or Patreon made many viewers think, oh, what a novel idea. Now, a lot of them just groan. And it's not just this. It's also things like the way YouTube lacks a functional support system. You can get their attention on Twitter if you're one of the big dogs, and if you're small, a video getting wrongly blocked is a pain in the ass, but it won't mean you're missing income. For a pro or semi-pro in the middle, though, that lack of support is gonna hit you right in the wallet. Or it's the way there's no secretaries or legal or accountants in your little wing of office YouTube. There's only you. So if you do manage to get to this middle, you suddenly have to start doing your own bookkeeping and spending your time liaising with any sponsor type things you will need to take to stay afloat, most of which don't end up going anywhere. And you'll be checking over your own contracts and filling out foreign tax forms. And of course, all this rubs more and more in a rough economic climate because hey, guess what? Those sponsor prices just got lower, and so did your Patreon count. And maybe people freaked out a little prematurely because they're already feeling the screws more than you'd think. And look, yes, I know exactly what a quarter or so of you are rushing to comment right now. Oh, YouTube creators have it rough? Your jobs are precarious? Got a little tiny violin right here for you. I do triple overtime in the mud factory every day and my boss only pays me a nickel. Boohoo. Sucks to suck. Maybe, say it with me everyone, get a real job. But have you considered that we might have tried? It's kind of rough out there right now. That's why I'm here, partially at least. I have a master's, with a distinction I might add from a good school, and I couldn't get anything for like a year after graduating, in my field or well outside of it. I was applying for supermarket jobs, didn't get one of those. Sometimes even the mud factory isn't hiring. I started my channel as a rainy day thing while still studying, and I'd kept at it unlike any of the other hobbies I'd picked up and dropped over the years, not least because I had some bewildering early success and got monetized super quickly. And making videos while I didn't get interviews was at least earning me a little money. I rolled the dice on this as a full-time thing before I should have. Honestly, I'm still kind of rolling those dice before I should be, because I love making these videos, sure, but also because as a person without rich parents or family connections or whatever, I didn't have a ton of other options. The fact that the money has kind of worked out for as long as it has, and again, that's in relative terms, I have yet to even start paying my student loan off, that's great. I worked like a damn dog and I got lucky. But if I hadn't, yeah, I kind of would have been up shit creek. And look, if I did have another gig, yes, I would still make video essays too, but maybe a few a year? They're not easy or quick, And I'd probably still monetize them because everything is so fucking expensive now. So maybe don't tell people you don't know to get a job. Unless you're offering them one. Also, I'm not sure all the people complaining about creators doing this as a job have thought their objections the whole way through. Don't get me wrong, creators should make sure they're not taking scam sponsorships, and nobody is more pissed off than us when YouTube randomly shoves 20 more ad spots in the middle of our videos. But saying creators shouldn't expect to be able to get paid, yes, through ads, yes, through sponsorships, yes, through Patreon plugs, that content creation should just be a hobby unless you're completely able to fund video production in invisible ways that never peek out into the videos. I mean, is that not totally classist? What do you think is going to happen to the people who aren't independently wealthy? Do you really want this whole website to be split between an aging, shrinking pool of early success stories, the Rolling Stones of YouTube, till you're 90? And rich fail sons whose hedge fund manager dad pays their rent? Probably not, right? Because the choice here isn't between the annoyingly monetized versions of the stuff you're watching, where you maybe have the horrible ordeal of hitting right arrow 4 times in a row near the video start, and a version without the ads and the plugs. No, for the stuff you spend the vast majority of your time on this site watching, and I'll wheel out the numbers for that claim later, the choice is between it existing imperfectly and it not existing. So why are you telling me to get a job while watching something I was only able to make doing full-time hours? And why do you think I should get less back for that than I already do? Clearly you think it's at least somewhat worthwhile, or why are you watching? Sorry, that was a bit of a vent. My bad. Look, obviously you, the viewer, are not complicit in this somewhat exploitative system. You don't have the power here, but you are here. So maybe don't tell us that he shouldn't exist. And I think I do mean exploitative. This is Karen Howe's book, Empire of AI. It's a really compelling deep dive. Shit. Look at my glasses. One sec. Sorry, I broke for lunch in between the last section and now, and you know. Anyway. This is Karen Howe's book, Empire of AI. It's a really compelling deep dive into the bizarre, evil world of contemporary big tech, and I've been reading it over the last month or so as research for a couple of AI videos I'm making here soonish. One part in particular that hit me pretty hard comes as Howe's discussing the lives of the online workers in the global south whose poorly compensated labor helped to fuel the AI boom, like Venezuelan data annotator Oscarina Veronica Fuentes Anaya, who in 2019 had turned to American web platforms like Appen to make ends meet. I'll quote a few excerpts. To Fuentes, there was little apparent logic to which tasks appeared in her Appen queue. The only thing it made clear was that she needed to have good, consistent performance to continue receiving work. In Telegram and Discord groups, Fuentes traded tips with other Venezuelans working on Appen as they sought to deduce the rules like an elaborate puzzle. An account closure could be devastating. Opening up a fresh account meant starting back at the bottom, with the least well-paid tasks or increasingly, no tasks at all. The erratic, unpredictable nature of when work came and went began to control Fuentes' life. She slept fitfully, worried about the tasks that would arrive in the middle of the night, yet despite how much stress and hair-pulling Appen caused, Fuentes couldn't imagine leaving the platform. Appen had been her savior. When things were good, they were really good. When things were bad, she stayed tethered to the platform with the stubborn faith that it would return her loyalty. I remember reading that chapter. My first thought afterwards was, Jesus, that's evil. I really hope the workers involved are in a better situation now, and that their Silicon Valley would-be feudal lords get Blender. That's new. And my second thought was, hang on, why does that description sound so familiar? I want to be super fucking clear. I want to be autoglass clear that I am not saying YouTube creators have it as bad as data annotation type workers in the global south. These things are not the same at all. Are we on the same page? Good. I do want to say though that I'm bringing those passages up for a reason. I do want to say that you could change the word work to views. You could change Appen to YouTube and so on, and the above passages would then echo things I have personally thought and said to a pretty shocking degree. I do want to say that there is a sanded down, accelerated, alienated techno-logic in common here, one that abstracts workers and work into data points, that mystifies its own relations of production, that is built around this essential disavowal. And I do want to say that's what makes this vulgar, depersonalized platform capitalism so appealing to and so lucrative for the big fuck-off companies that run your Appens, and your MTurks, and your Ubers, and your YouTubes. I'm not just pulling all this out of my ass. Some of you may recall Italian theorist Franco Bifo Berardi from that Severance video I made a few months back. I'd like to quote from his 2009 book After the Future again here, because it contains some very prescient analysis on the technological and economic frameworks that would soon give rise to the platform capitalism we're discussing. Writing on the, quote, technical transformations introduced by the digitalization of the productive cycle, Berardi observes that the essential point is not the becoming precarious of the labor relation, but the dissolution of the person as active productive agent, as labor power. The resulting global production environment, cyberspace, can be described as an immense expanse of depersonalized human time. That phrase, depersonalized, is important for us. One thing that first Josh Strife-Hayes video mentions in passing is the idea that regardless of disruptions like the views drop, YouTube will eventually return to an equilibrium, will, and I'm quoting, catch up to support the system being sustainable for as many creators as possible. And I'm just not sure that is the platform's equilibrium. See, there are two fundamental elements of YouTube, or at least of today's YouTube. There's the practically unrivaled video hosting capacity, and there's the equally sophisticated recommendation algorithm. These two elements work together perfectly, and in their fusion, create what is essentially a funnel. The context, that is YouTube's functional monopoly over monetized user-uploaded video, means this isn't just a funnel, it is the funnel. That video hosting capacity is the funnel's top, gigantic, able to take in infinite quantities and varieties of content. The algorithm is the funnel's bottom, processing that morass and emitting a relatively small output. The content it judges will best keep people there. I do mean small. Like I indicated earlier, by runtime, most of the site's content is probably made by hobbyists. As of a 2022 study, half of all public videos had fewer than 35 views, but by watch time, it's a different story, with only 3.67% of videos being responsible for 93% of views. Now, the study I'm getting these from wasn't an exhaustive one, largely because that same platform opacity that flummoxes creators also stymies researchers, so it doesn't allow us to get that specific about how sharp this watch time inequality is within that 3.67%, but if I'm reading the study correctly, that fraction includes everything above the 10k mark, so I think it's fair to assume you'd be looking at a similar, if not even sharper distribution the further you zoomed in. Point being, YouTube is a machine designed to sift through vast amounts of user-uploaded video and push an increasingly small fraction of that video to more and more viewers. As Spiff's video rightfully pointed out, the only goal of this system is to drive view time, to maximize retention, to keep people on the platform as long as possible. The funnel is how it does this, and the sophistication of the funnel is such that all it needs is more input. And I do mean input, not inputters, not creators. Mr. Beast could delete his channel tomorrow and things would tick right on. Those billions of impressions would redistribute themselves without skipping a beat. As a creator, you can benefit from the funnel's patterns of success if you put out more that's similar to the input it likes. But it doesn't like you. It never likes you. It likes the similarity. That's why channel pivots are so hard. The funnel doesn't care about you. By design, it can't. It cares about the data, the depersonalized data. So train yourself to chop off all of your being that doesn't fit the funnel's pattern, all of the you that doesn't fit in the tube. And make sure you're producing enough from what's left, because your position is precarious, even if you start to make it, because then you have to keep making it over and over again. For most creators, it's not a matter of sink or swim. It's sink or swim and swim and swim and swim and swim. Keep track of how behind you are with a misleading but prominently placed system of green and grey arrows. Don't worry, there are more grey ones than green. And do all this in return for no salary, no minimum payment guarantees or benefits, because you're not a worker, obviously. You're just the person making the company its money. And if that all gets too much, if you realize that depersonalization has been seeping backward this whole time, if you start to feel more machine, more algorithm than man, if another one of your big projects ended up demonetized and that team YouTube doesn't think you've got enough followers to put a human on, if clicking through your Instagram stories as one more video renders, you realize you're looking at people who used to be your friends who you haven't seen in years now, then go ahead, call it. Make the teary video, the goodbye post, watch all that effort sweep away into YouTube's lone and level sands as the hungrier ones, the ones still grinding, the yous from a year ago take your place, receive what would have been your impressions, and drive the cycle on. All the funnel needs is more input. And if you're comfortable, if you don't have to worry about fluctuating views and earnings and random demonetization and burnout and an atrophying social life, and you feel able to work, to produce at something resembling your own pace, well, you're probably going to end up making less input. And less isn't more, it's less. That funnel's depersonalizing sophistication and that funnel's monopoly lead to a scenario where creator churn isn't only acceptable, it's almost better. where there is no incentive, at least in the short term, to look out for, or at least properly communicate to, a big pool of would-be professionals or semi-professionals below the top who have come, sensibly or otherwise, to believe hard work and talent might pay. I wonder which company gave them that idea. So what's with all the YouTube bad? Why is this website on fire? Why is everyone freaking out over what seems to be a fairly minor views dip and might not even be that? Well, I'll play you one more clip from Josh Strife-Hayes that I think gets very near the answer.
Restricted mode was a convenient scapegoat for a larger collection of smaller changes all adding together.
This is almost it. This is kind of the square root of it. Because I don't think restricted mode was the scapegoat, to borrow Hayes' terminology, for the views dip, the back-end change. I think that's the scapegoat. That's the short-term issue we're wrongly pinning it all on. The proximate cause is this, a wide-ranging and unexplained view dip of atypical size, possibly related to undisclosed changes to desktop view tracking, and possibly not. But in taking a step back, in surveying the greater picture, the pre-existing, probably separate issues with restricted mode, the near-total opacity of YouTube, the missing middle of a platform that doesn't and kinda can't value creator well-being, not to mention the redoubled and frankly insulting efforts of that platform to further degrade creator and viewer personhood with AI slop functionality, and the way all this echoes rather than resists evil trends and practices from elsewhere in society, in the economy, in the world, we can begin to perceive the ultimate cause, the reason a seemingly minor issue like this has drawn forth so much distress. YouTube is pretty bad, actually. YouTube is pretty bad in spite of itself. Because holy shit, is there some great stuff being done on this platform, despite this platform. And still occasionally because of it. There is no barrier to entry. You can just start making stuff. We all get to watch super talented people make things they probably couldn't have through the traditional channels of entertainment media, which kind of suck themselves for a whole bunch of more or less similar reasons, and are getting enshittified, enslopified, or otherwise torn down just as fast as this place is, if not faster. Looking at further than all the bloody state censorship. And sure, on YouTube you get a lot of pricks in the comments, talking about you. But you also get so many nice people saying nice things too. You fixate on the wankers, sure, that's human nature, but they are outnumbered. And the overwhelming majority of interactions I've had with other creators have been positive and rich and inspiring. I started this video arguing back against the video from the Spiffing Brit, which I think on balance was a swing and a miss from him, but there are parts, big parts, I agree with too. I agree shooting for fulfillment as creators, as viewers even, is something we should try to do, and more than that, I agree that fulfillment is possible, and that sometimes this place rocks so hard. But as creators, we're lying to ourselves and our audiences if we don't also recognize the very mixed reality of how this platform operates, how platform capitalism operates more widely, who it works for, and who gets left behind. Thank you for watching. And yes, I am going to end with a Patreon plug, and I am going to ask you to consider supporting this channel to help me keep doing this. Yep, I know there was an ad earlier too, and I know there are YouTube ads in the video also, but I need you to understand that we don't make very much from those until the view counts get way bigger. Okay, here goes. You can join up from as little as £2 a month. You'll get access to a nice big library of bonus stuff, and you can even impact future video topics. There's a poll running right now. I'm really trying to get to at least 200 members by the end of the year, and I'm working on a few stretch goal rewards past that too, which I'll let you guys know about soon. If you like what I do, this is the best way to ensure I can keep doing it. See, that wasn't so bad, was it? Huge shout out to everyone on screen right now who's helping out already, especially Hanan, Daniel Goldhorn, Harry Price, Krang Yu Liu, Something Capitalism Bad, Thomas R, and Weirdy Beardy. And stick around, there's a bunch more stuff coming out soon. That's the video, we're done. Ignore me. Pretend I'm not here. I'm just gonna riff until the credits are over. Was this good, by the way, this format? You know, obviously I'm still learning to do the lighting and stuff. Probably doesn't look great. I know I'm gesticulating too much as well. I'm working on that. But you know, if it was bad, I can go back to being a disembodied voice. That's fine by me. And I hope it was at least slightly interesting. Oh god, was this a really fucking boring video? Why did I make this? We're still going? Alright, you know, this is also a perk, right? You get on the credits, even if you're just on the bottommost tier. You can be scrolling up past my face. You know, my credits are long. That's not because I'm making a ton of bank from this. It's just because I try to give a lot of rewards to everyone all the way down the tier pyramid. All right, I think we're done. Goodbye.